Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and peace be upon everyone watching us right now. My name is Alia Al-Mahdi and I'm joined today with my guest James Al-Mahdi. It's a very big honor to have you here, brother. A big privilege to be speaking to you right now. We are discussing today some of our experiences that we've gone through in this recent humanitarian crisis that has taken place in Turkey. A crisis in which over 100 persecuted members of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light have been detained and brutally treated as well, as per the testimonies that have been released recently. They were at the Turkish-Bulgarian border when they were detained by Turkish border police and are currently waiting to be deported, as they have notices of deportation handed to them by the Turkish government, and they're currently at the Edirne Removal Center. Appeals have been made to lift that deportation notice from them so that they will not be returned back home, where they will face imminent imprisonment and in some cases even death. So this is a matter of urgency. I'd like to remind the viewers out there, we do have a petition that everyone is signing that's available on our website. So if you'd like, you could go to theahmadireligion.org and actually find the petition, sign it there, and do your bit to stop this injustice from taking place. And you don't know if your signature may save a human life. Now, we have noticed that this news has been spreading quite rapidly through different agencies. Obviously, it's quite a story in the sense that, first off, we've seen that this platform live streamed the entire event, and we were able to witness firsthand in real time what happens when refugees attempt to legally cross the borders as refugees, not cutting the fences, not taking boats, actually following international protocol.
Legal and official means.
Exactly.
Everything was done in such a fashion. And you present the reality of what we're seeing today very clearly. And when you mentioned about the petition and the fact that you make a petition, you put your name down, you stand up against the injustice, united we stand, divided we fall. If we do that, each and every one of us, did you just say that? You did. You can save lives. We're not talking about signing up for something, to win a prize. We're talking about not to win a recipe.
Exactly.
We're talking about someone's life. We're talking about many lives, and this cannot be allowed to carry on in this fashion. So when we think about media, Alia, we think about media as something that is a tool for justice.
Yes.
We think about how media, it's all about what is your intention to do with that tool. Now, in the beginning, most people, they just worked by the word of mouth. That was the way people communicated. That was their media. But social media now has developed to such an extent through technology that wherever you go in life, there is social media. People are glued to their phones. People are glued to their television sets. Even if you go on the metro service in advanced countries like China, there is media everywhere. You're blasted with it from the morning to the night. And even if you go back to the time of the wars, it was like everywhere you look. Talk costs lives or whatever, posters blasted everywhere. So it was constantly in people's minds. And that media had the power to spread fear, love, or hate into the minds of the people, depending on how they reacted towards it. Which is very powerful. And normally they would react exactly as the state wanted, because that was how the state were aware of how they could influence the people. You go back to the likes of Edward Bernays in his books about propaganda. It's clearly labelled out that that's what he knew was the power of the media through the understanding of psychology. So this is a very important point that we can comprehend from that.
That's something very important to understand then, isn't it? That the media and the press have the responsibility to give the information to the public the way it is. And we were discussing this earlier before going on, because this situation of the fake news that's been coming out from certain outlets has been alarming for us, because when we read the way that they are depicting the story, it's quite outrageous. We don't understand why they would say it in that way, but it's, as you said, a journalist's true role is what? It's to deliver the truth to the public. It's to tell the civilians what exactly is going on the ground, and have no bias involved and no discrimination involved, no prejudice. Unfortunately, if you weigh some of these fake news stories with against the evidence that's right in front of everyone, that's available to the public, accessible at your hands, it just doesn't add up. And it's very alarming that they believe they can present a false narrative to their people. And it is important to clarify here, these outlets that were depicting the story in a false way are actually Turkish. Now, what does that tell us?
and predominantly government agency in media outlets.
Yes.
So they're controlled, therefore, by the governorships of various areas. And then obviously in the case of where we're talking about, it's predominantly Aderne government agencies are linking in together to give that falsification. And when you think about it as well...
That's wagging the dog, isn't it?
It is wagging the dog, and it's very disturbing when you see that it can propagate that way. And it's really only, which is even more disturbing, when you know the truth, that you can see this, because then you can weigh up the balance, the two forms of media. One that's following the clear narrative of the events that unfold, because they do unfold, because we had them on a live stream. So we were able to see in actual reality, as the events unfolded, the details of the scenario, what happened. And when you can see it in that fashion, and then you can see the leaked reports that come out testifying to what's happened inside the detention centres and all of this, you get a full picture of everything that's happened, then the opposing side cannot be the truth. It's
Absolutely.
very clear.
Exactly. I mean, I really hope, and this might sound a bit naive as a question from myself, but I do wonder, and it's a genuine question, do the public then do their research? Hopefully they would understand that they should be going out there and searching for what the truth is.
Yes.
Or do they just simply take what's given to them from anywhere and everywhere?
Yeah, exactly.
And specific, that government that they're following, are they doing the research on what they're telling them, or do they just take whatever they're told?
Exactly, and people have to be prepared to investigate and stand up and follow what is correct. By doing that investigation, they have to weigh up the evidence and see, and then follow the truth, and not have that agenda in their mind. And as it says, as a doctor would say, at first do no harm. That's a Hippocratic oath.
Yes.
We say, a journalist, at first at least explore and tell the facts as they are.
Yes.
You know, that's all we're asking. We're not asking for anyone to come up with some elaborate story, which is very dangerous.
That's not the role of the press. The role of the press is to honorably deliver the truth without having any agenda behind it. Let's perhaps go a little bit into some of some of the fake news that we are hearing from these Turkish outlets. You've got outlets such as Hurriyet TV, we've got Halk TV that have been trying to tell the story to the people of what happened at their border. It is something that they would have to worry about because it happened right at home, it happened at their border, but the things that they're coming out with are just not adding up with the facts that are at hand.
Exactly.
So what exactly are some of the things that they're saying?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this video, I don't know if it's going to be played now or we're going to play that in a minute.
I think we're going to read the transcript of that video. We could do it right now, actually. So we've got a video that came out it's on their YouTube. This is from their Turkish television. And this is what they say. So in this news clip, they say, the other day in Edirne, and then they go into the story, a group of about 100 people, different nationalities, tried to pass through the Kapıkulet border gate and were detained. Security forces intervened with this group who were found to be without passports, and the entire activist group was detained. Then it says, so here you go. So can you hear that? The entire activist group. Now, these are not activists. These are clearly refugees by definition.
Why would you be carrying all your luggage? Why would you be bringing elderly, disabled people to do an activist movement?
It is absolutely ridiculous.
Why wouldn't you have a loudspeaker and huge posters proclaiming things? These people were clearly making a move. There was an open letter that had been signed by over 25 human rights organisations that were supporting their claim to have their case for asylum heard.
Exactly.
Now, why would that all have been arranged and been understood to be the case if they were solely going out there to be activists?
I mean, let's basically understand what that means. That means that this news outlet is saying they were activists, okay, based on no evidence. So the burden is upon them to now provide evidence. How are they activists? In what sense? Activists for what? And then they have to now explain how they're activists against the truth that over 25 human rights organizations are vouching that they are refugees who seek asylum. So these human rights organizations, Human Rights Without Frontiers, you've got Central Aid Voice in Bulgaria, you've got Mission Wings Bulgaria, you've got
Human Rights Watch, you've got the Border Voices,
Global Voices, the Border Monitoring Violence Network. It's like much.
It's a huge network of agencies who are from the human rights organizations. It's basically all of the ones
are they all wrong?
that are available. So and they're all coming from the same standpoint. There's none on the other side saying the opposing opposing view.
Exactly, and
They're
it
all
has
saying,
people have to also understand it's not the case that a human rights organization will suddenly pick up someone's situation and just go with it. They assess exactly whether or not it's a human rights crisis.
Exactly.
Whether or not it's a breach of human rights or not.
Are these people coming here because they want a better life? Are they coming for the milk and honey? Or are they quite literally fleeing for their lives?
Exactly.
And why would the people bring the disabled and the elderly and go through this trauma that they knew they were going to face potentially if they were looking for better lives?
Absolutely.
And why, when they've been facing such traumas in their own countries, you know, the tortures,
which there is evidence
the imprisonments, which we have evidence of.
It's
Once
documented.
again, it's documented. So if the media had taken time to at least review some of this documentation, to review some of these videos, they would have found that their cases were valid.
Absolutely.
And then all they had to do then was to back that up by listening to some of the human rights information that was coming out from the story, and they would know that it was backed up by that as well.
But
they
now you have
two clear markers.
But now you have all these citizens of Turkey sitting there listening at home to the news, hearing that, oh, so these people were activists, which is not the case.
Yes.
Now, it goes on. It says that in the statement by the governorship of Edirne, information was given about two British citizens who identified themselves as journalists. Journalist Tolga Sardan claimed that these two people were involved in espionage activities. Now, these two, I assume they're talking about the two independent journalists who went out there to film and document.
Journalists there, and they were documenting the case quite clearly.
He's actually had a testimony that he's been able to make over the phone and explain the condition that he's in and that the refugees are in. So they just took these two in with all the refugees, and now they've decided to tell their citizens that they were involved in espionage activities.
But this is the key point again, and someone reminded me of this. The freedom of the press, the freedom of the press is inalienable right, a human right, and they stand there because they want to give the justice to the people if the governments aren't prepared to do it themselves. And they put themselves in a firing line every day that they do that. And we've seen that time and time again, whether in Palestine or anywhere. You see when the press go out there, they forget about themselves and they focus solely on doing their job, if they're doing it with integrity. And yet the ones that do it with integrity like that, we often find the end result is they either pay with their life, sadly in some cases, or they get detained. So what is the plan then? If you have the truth with you and you're on the other side, it means that you are looking to silence the medium of the press, and therefore you are obviously probably presenting a tyrannical stance. I mean, what else would be...
I mean, it is very strange and shocking that the Turkish government could detain two members of the press who are independent journalists, because it says a lot then about what they're willing to do in order to make sure that the narrative that they are trying to play out be played out, and that people hear their version rather than the non-biased truth of what's really going on. Because now that they are, and then this for me is quite heavy.
Did you say espionage?
Yes, espionage. It's just bizarre that you can go and accuse someone of performing espionage activities. Can you provide any evidence as a news outlet or as a media outlet before deciding that somebody is a certain title without any evidence backing it up? I mean, the least you could do then, as the press, as media, is explain yourselves and show us where they are spies, of what nature.
I mean, to claim someone's a spy, first of all, if you actually have evidence and you claim that that is the truth, then that person is deserving of the death sentence accordingly. So if that's the case, then why are you then saying they're not with any charge, that they're free of any charge? And if they're putting them under the espionage rules, what have they done? Where is the evidence, as you say? Have they been tracking them and training them for a long time? No, because they weren't in Turkey for very long, so they didn't even know anything about them until they arrived.
Exactly.
And then as soon as they arrived, they were obviously moving with these people. So how does that happen then? How do they pick up so much intelligence?
I mean, it's a brazen comment that was just very recklessly thrown there by their media, by Turkish media, and we do resent it for their sake, because it isn't true, of course. But now we go back to what they're saying about the refugees that were taken of this religion. They say, well, this part is quite strange. They say, in addition, it was alleged that the governorship of Edirne requested news agencies not to report on this issue. Which I think, there you go. That's just, again, like we were saying, a brazen attempt to silence what the truth really is. What are you hiding?
Yeah, I mean, it's like going beyond fake news now. You know, but fake news is you're going against it. Now you're saying nothing about it. You're saying silence. And silence is the worst thing, because then you're basically saying that these people have no rights to have their cases heard. Like, you're putting a silencer on the people. Because why? Because you're probably doing some horrendous crimes behind the scenes. Because why? Because the authorities are probably detaining the people and abusing and torturing the people.
And it turns out...
It turns out what?
That's the case.
That's the case. So that would be a proof for why you would want to silence the media.
Very
and
disturbing.
To silence the reality of it.
This can happen in today's world, in this century, in a country like Turkey. I mean, it's really bizarre. It goes on, it says, moreover, whether the group called Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light, then they say, which the activists claim to be affiliated with, is among the risky structures that need to be monitored, remains an unanswered question. Now, how peculiar is that? I mean, I really don't know what to say about this.
Who is at risk here?
I don't understand. You've got all these men, women, children, vulnerable children, elderly men,
disabled people,
old women,
people with diabetes,
people with heart conditions. They're all, and we've got reports coming out, we've got testimonies coming out that people there are being beaten, are bruised, are traumatized. The children are not given blankets at night to sleep with. It's cold. There's no hygiene at all that they're provided with, hygienic measures of any sort.
It almost feels like some kind of Auschwitz Holocaust camp, you know, when you look at it and the conditions that these people are under.
Inhumane conditions. I mean, they are saying that they are going through very inhumane conditions, and they're being threatened with staying silent, otherwise they're going to be met with more violence and more brutality. And this is something that they are saying whenever they have the ability to contact the outside world, this is what they are coming with.
But then you say as well, you said risky, and going back to that risky structure again.
What is that?
You know, a risky structure would imply you've got a very clever intelligence, that you've got very elite soldiers. I mean, what have you got there at the front? You've got children of 5 years of age who can barely speak a word of English. So how can they even manage to deal with intelligence in that fashion? These are vulnerable people. These are people who are suffering, and are suffering even more now at the hands of the Turkish authorities than they were potentially before. I mean, it's like moving from one hellish reality to another hellish reality. And this is deplorable. It is
deplorable. I think it's also very necessary that we make it quite clear. This religion is a registered religion. It's an actual, proper, registered religion. This is not just a group of activists. Absolutely not. This is a religion. The Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light is registered in the United States. It's registered in Europe. It's a 501c3 non-profit organization that's based in the US. So it's not something that came up out of nowhere. This is something that you will find documented on paper to be a registered religion. The members of this religion in different countries have been persecuted, and to belittle their ordeal that they've been living through, to belittle the kind of trauma they've gone through and the torment that they've had to face in their home countries, to the extent that they've had to rip their lives apart just to run away to save themselves, only to be met with this kind of allegation that they are activists, because now the burden of the proof is upon Turkey. For Turkey to decide that they are activists, you have to explain why.
Back up your case. You're making this statement, this very bold, outlandish statement, then you must be prepared to back it up. But as you clearly say, these are people that have faced so much suffering, so much horrendous suffering, and it's led to them having long-term health conditions, as you can see, to be psychologically traumatized, psychologically traumatized to the extent that they have to flee their own countries because they're branded as heretics, infidels. Now, if you're carrying all your luggage on your back, how are you then an activist when you're literally going to a border post? And why, if you're an activist, wouldn't you go to the centre of Istanbul to declare your case? Why would you take yourself from a small remote town to the border to claim your position?
It's nonsensical.
That would be ignorance. Where's your intelligence? Where's your espionage behind you to do that?
Yes, it's illogical.
If I was using intelligence and espionage, my first port of call would be the centre of the city where everybody gathers, and therefore I could make my case a lot more clear and apparent, not at the border.
No, absolutely. It's just very illogical, and it's unfortunate that this seems to be an attempt to completely mar the story, the truth of the story, and it's not a successful attempt, because at the end of the day, all of these videos are being released. They are telling the truth, and there is this constant message that comes out with each testimonial, where you hear the person saying, the victim or the refugee is saying, they told us not to tell anyone. They told us we aren't allowed to talk to the doctors about what they did. They told us to stay quiet about this or they'll hurt us more. There's the incident that recently came out today as breaking news of one of the Iranian members over there, a brother by the name of Puria, and the sort of treatment that he received is so heart-wrenchingly, so distressfully, just painful. For him to be able to be brave enough to even say it, because he testified that he was even sexually harassed, and he was warned. This individual, this young man, was warned and told that if you tell anyone, then we will. I
mean, does this guy look like a dangerous criminal? This is just a young man who's putting himself on the line to get over this border, to protect himself and his family, because he believes in this truth, this reality.
I mean, it's very clear. It's very clear that if anyone makes a statement, and I want to say something else. We've been talking facts, now we're going to talk about our faith for a second. Now, we as members of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, our effective head of this faith is Abdullah Hashim Abbas Sadiq, from whom is peace. And one of the characteristics of Abbas Sadiq and of his companions is that we call ourselves the companions of the evidence. We've never said something that is not backed up with evidence. In fact, the Goal of the Wise, which is this book, which is the reason why these members were persecuted in the first place in their home countries, because it's so full of so much truth that the countries they came from don't like and they don't support. Because although it's a humane religion and a humane book,
they can't argue against it.
They can't argue against it.
The only thing they can do is try to silence it and persecute.
Exactly.
Because if they had a single grain of knowledge that they could use to go against the book, they would do it day and night.
Exactly. So,
and they would use this as their weapon, because the media is a weapon. The knowledge is a weapon. The weapon of knowledge is truth and wisdom.
Exactly.
But if they haven't got any of that, then what is their only response?
It's to attack. It's to inflict pain. Now, the weapon that we're talking about of truth is that the evidence behind everything that we say is very concrete. The evidence behind what we believe in is very concrete. And that's just the way we believe a true human being should be, with any integrity. You should have evidence for what you say or what you claim. This is how we stand.
If the evidence says that you do not have to wear a compulsory hijab, and there's clear narrations to prove that, and there's a reality behind that, and if the evidence says that you're allowed to drink alcohol in moderation or whatever, if the evidence says that the holy month should be based on this, and
on December or
you know
August,
what I mean, and the evidence supports that, then it's a clear cut and dried case. And if that isn't acceptable to you because of your state-sponsored beliefs, then you have to rationalize and you have to prove otherwise. And if they can't do that, which they obviously can't, then this is the result you get time and time again.
Absolutely. No, I think it's quite clear. The case is quite clear. We do want to just, again, reiterate that there is a petition that you can sign. If you stand for justice, if you believe in humanity, please be a part of our attempt to make this terrible humanitarian crisis stop. To resolve the issue, go to www.theahmadireligion.org, where you can sign the petition and support these persecuted human beings whose crime was to follow international law. We would like to thank everyone who's out there who's been helping us, all these media outlets that have been showing the truth for what it is.
It's been amazing that we've had these media outlets that have been prepared to come forth, such as the Sophia Globe. We've had the EU Reporter, the Euronews Weekly, the London Globe, BNN, and all these media reports have come through, and they are so prepared and determined to research the facts. And when they believe and know that it's the truth, they report it as it is, because then it's a clear justification that what we are presenting is the truth.
Exactly.
And they just examine what we've provided, which is a clear evidence of what happened.
Absolutely.
And they're prepared to do that. And the more they do that, then we get the likes of Metro, we get the likes of the Scottish Sun, and they are also supporting the truth. They're presenting the reality that's being sent forward. And these are not small media outlets.
No.
These are huge media outlets that have a global impact. And because of that, other outlets such as the European Times, the Belgian Times, they are all coming forth presenting the reality as it is, which is a clear indication that it's the truth. And they are determined to do that, and because they do that, then their readership gets the reality. And when they get the reality, they want to fight for justice.
Exactly.
So once that does, that tips the scales in the favor of the truth. And that's why the media is critical that it honors its covenant, which is to at least present the facts as they are. And if they are, like you said, we are a family of the truth that presents the facts primarily as they are. And if it leads to this gospel being however many pages of truth, then that's what it is, because that is the truth.
Exactly, and that really is the message here. We would like to always back up what we say with evidence, and that's what we stand by.
Yes.
We do know that lines of communication with the UN are open. With ourselves, we are hoping and praying for a resolve to all of this. Hopefully the Turkish government will take heed. It will retract those deportation notices. As per international law, it would be a crime to send back these refugees home.
I was so shocked when I read that international law. Forgive me, I didn't realize it in the advance, but when I saw that it says people that are facing torture, people that are facing all these critical situations in their own countries, it is actually illegal to send them back to that country.
It absolutely is illegal.
Now that is shocking, because it means that they're directly contravening the laws that they have supposedly signed up for.
And it is important that we point this out, and we've been consistently doing so, because it is a very great matter of urgency. We're talking about human lives being at stake, families being ripped apart. It's not a small matter. We will be constantly giving the message out over and over again. We insist that Turkey backs off of this kind of illegal activity that it's been committing of hoping to send refugees back home, where they will be persecuted, further imprisoned and killed. And we also insist that the kind of treatment that the refugees are receiving be done in a humane fashion, and not the way that they are doing, as the testimonies are coming out and saying.
How can you keep people in those conditions is beyond comprehension.
It really is.
It's absolutely foul. It's vile. And these people are only doing what they need to do to save their lives.
Exactly. That's important to recognize, that they have broken these refugees have broken no laws and have been following international protocol.
They came through a legal mechanism. They came through the legal borders in an official fashion.
Yes.
That was their sole purpose, because they knew they were doing things justly and by the correct means.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to thank you so much, Brother James, for being on with us today.
Well,
God bless you.
Thank you for letting me join you. I mean, we have to do this. We have a right, because it's due diligence to share the truth and let the people know, so that they're not misguided by the fake media. Because if they're not prepared, or they don't have time to do the research, then the duty of care is upon us to make sure that we overturn the nonsense that's coming out in some of the media that you've discussed.
And we will take that duty on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much.